When a team brings in an AI code review, the first conversation almost always goes the same way. Does it plug into GitLab? Does it work with Jira? Is there a plugin for the IDE everyone already lives in? That sounds like due diligence, and it is, but it's the wrong list to be checking. The integrations that actually break a rollout are rarely the ones that are missing from it. More often, it's other things, like SSO blocking a trial before it even starts, or review turned on before a rulebook of standards exists. AI code review usually touches 6 places in your stack: the Git provider, your ticketing system, the IDEs and coding agents, identity and access, your rules and standards files, and the LLM infrastructure underneath all of it. What actually decides whether the rollout goes smoothly is the sequence you connect them in. So let's walk through the order they actually need to happen in. First, let's talk about Git provider integration. Nothing else on this list can be evaluated until this piece is resolved. So for example, GitHub Cloud and GitHub Enterprise Server are not going to have the same answer. And once you're on a self-hosted server, what's available and how it installs can both change. Here are some important questions you might want to ask. Can the access be scoped to a specific projects and repositories, or is it organization-wide or nothing? Security teams rarely have the organization-wide grant on the table, so get the scoped access requirement in writing before the trial starts. Second question you might want to ask is which permissions does the installation actually require, and who owns each one? Webhook registration usually needs an admin rights on the repo. Tokens need project level scope. Organization level grants need someone in security or platform to sign off. Mapping which approver owns which permission before kickoff is the actual day one work, more than any other technical setup. And final question, is there a full feature parity across your deployment model? Cloud and self-hosted are not the same product wearing different names, and some features differ between them. Once the Git provider is settled, ticketing and requirements come next. Start with getting an understanding of which ticket fields actually get read. Title and description are the easy part. The real test is whether custom fields, acceptance criteria, attachments, and labels are in the scope too, because that field coverage is what determines the depth of the context. And how a pull request declares its ticket matters just as much. There are really only 2 mechanisms: a direct link in the PR description, or a branch name that matches the ticket ID pattern. Test it out to see if the integration works well with how your team operates. Moving on to rules and standards. Your team already has standards. They might be scattered across different CloudMD files, a style guide nobody opens, or they can just be the judgment of a few senior engineers. So the integration should not require you to write a rulebook from scratch, but mine out information from what already exists, like your PR history, docs, or markdown files in your codebase. The second integration question is how standards stay separated across teams. Scoping at the organization, group, repo, file, or folder level is what stops one team conventions from leaking into another's, especially inside a monorepo where everything technically lives in the same place. Neither of these questions have a single owner. A security architect, a platform lead, and an individual repo owners each hold a piece of the rules, which is exactly why deciding who wins on the conflict has to happen before the rollout, not during it. Next up, onboarding. Identity and access is the one place teams tend to overscope way too early. One reason for that might be that some trials require SSO, but really they shouldn't. While still evaluating, SSO is applying a rollout level rigor to a stage that hasn't earned it yet. There's also the question of how users and teams stay in sync as the development grows. Manual management works fine at the size of a pilot. It gets painful once you're managing it across hundreds of people instead of 10. So for example, if your team relies on Okta for access management, it's crucial that you don't have to reach for a separate system in your AI code review integration. Once rules exist, and only then, IDEs and coding agents are the next connection to make, because shift left review amplifies whatever rules are already seeded. So there are 2 questions to ask when integrating. Which editors and agents are actually supported, and through what mechanism? A list of plugins on a vendor page usually answers the first question. Answering the second one is important for understanding how the decision made locally makes its way upstream back to your rules. Finally, let's talk about LLM infrastructure integration. The first question to answer is whether you can bring your own API keys and restrict which models run. There are two deployment models in which teams operate. Single-Tenant, where bringing your own keys and restricting to a model family is the usual standard. And then there's Multi-Tenant model, where you get a shared benchmark model pool instead. Settle which of those your requirements actually put you in before comparing anything else on the list. The second question to answer when you're integrating through your own AI gateway is whether it can handle review scale traffic, which is very different shape than the chat traffic. This part is vital to understand before you start scaling to the whole company. So take the 6 categories, take the questions attached to each one, and answer them in that sequence. Do that to get a better understanding of the tool you want to integrate and to see if it clicks.